Hello, I'm Joyce, founder of Beyond This Point Ministries and your host today. We've been plowing through a series of getting past the past, and we're winding down with only one more segment after this one as we become pardoned for the future. Last week we walked through the principles of how our past molds today and our present shapes our future, as well as what we focus on is what we become. Today we're going to talk about another important principle in becoming pardoned from your past. I'm often asked if I could change one day of my childhood, what would it be? My quick response, nothing. If I thought for 1 second that anything I went through would alter my relationship, my dependency, my trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, not one moment would I go back and change. I might possibly have never landed the husband I did were I to change anything. I believe that every experience you have and every person you meet plays some role in the shaping of your future. It becomes what we make it. Now that I'm the relationship expert at CW Louisville, a local network in Kentucky, I don't walk in the door without one of the guests and many times a couple of the staff engaging in conversation about a relationship they're in. I capitalize on the opportunity to learn as much as I can about the individual. Not for me to fix their problem, but because I believe they've been placed in my life for a reason. They will in some way be a part of not just my present, that moment, but my future as well. Perhaps only in some small way, but who knows, it could be in a really big way. That's up to God. So never underestimate the value of someone you meet, either on a plane or in church or even in the elevator. In my focus on God, He was teaching me to love, laugh, and to live. I was learning, and it's a proven fact, that people who live in the past aren't fruitful. They die younger, they're miserable, and they get older quicker. Now that doesn't mean to say that we're going to stay young looking forever. We just stay young acting. My grandkids can all attest, of course you'll have to wait till some of them can actually talk, of how crazy this Mimi is. They love coming to Mimi's house. It's a time for memories to be made. From the time they walk in the door until the time they leave, I am lavishing love on them. My little Booker, the 2-year-old that lives in Indiana, walks in the door and he immediately starts taking off his shoes and socks, grabs mine, snatches them off and says, "Mimi, you better run." And off we go, and it thrills my heart. Connor and Sean, the older boys who live in Georgia, have me crawling through tunnels and jumping in foxholes, hiding from the enemy forces that are attacking us, in and out and roundabout on jungle gyms, playing knights and pirates and superheroes. And these two little girls, little Miss Georgia, who lives in Indiana, and little Miss Kelsey, who lives in Atlanta, what a joy they are. They want constant hugs and loves and smooches, and we dance around the house and stir, mix it in the kitchen. Oh yeah, the boys do that too because they're going to be self-sufficient men if I have anything to do with it. But oh my goodness, I'm worn out by the time I'm done. I just survived all 5 of them in the house for 1 solid week. It was priceless. As I was closing the door after all the hugs and loves and tears because they had to leave, Shawnee yells back, "Mimi, we'll be back again this summer." And Connor pipes in and yells, "Yeah, and Mimi, can we come for 2 weeks this time?" Oh my gosh. My initial thought, I won't survive it. But I just shook my head and said, "If Mommy says you can, you're on." Then came a great big cheer from the van, Mommy included. Lord, give me strength. Do you see what I'm building up to, ladies? I had no idea how to fashion a home. Not a clue what sense of normal would be. Now, you and I both know there's no such thing as normal. I mean, who's the judge of that anyway, really? But coming from a home devoid of love, laughter, and life, I certainly knew what I didn't want a home to be like. It took some years to learn that the simple things you do are the ones that go the farthest in life and love. You don't have to get wrapped up in the big stuff, the serious stuff. Your kids don't want the material things. They want your time. Just surprise them with zaniness. One of the best memories my girls have, and you may have heard me talk about it, is when I didn't plan the trip to Disney World with them. I think I shared that, with you maybe a time or two before, but I woke them up at 4 o'clock in the morning and told them that they'd find out where we were going when they got there. They were enthralled. They're 34 and 30 now, and they still talk about that trip that we took to Disney World out of the blue, because it was totally out of the ordinary. So be creative, because they love that. Your children want you flinging off your shoes and running through the sprinklers with them in your clothes, or your best suit, or jumping into the kiddie pool with your clothes on, or sliding down the slip and slide when you get out of the car from work and they're out in the yard playing. Been there, done that one. Just dare to be a kid again, and you'll win their hearts, whether they're kids or they're your grandkids. Now, we have one of those inflatable water slides for our grandkids. I've got the greatest picture of my sweet husband coming in from a wedding he just conducted. This was just last year, mind you. We were having a cookout, and he came in after the get-together had started. One of the adults dared him to slide down the slide in his tux. He did. Our grandkids and kids still talk about it. It's a great memory they'll have forever of him. We continue to give great memories for our kids so that they can delight in revisiting their past. No, I didn't know anything about how a home was supposed to be, but God did. Relinquishing things beyond my control day by day, not just from my past, but all the daily junk, keeps adversities and hardships, uncertainty, whether financial or health, or even national security, from crowding the future out of today. I knew I wanted to be that Proverbs woman, the wise one that builds the house, not the foolish one that tears it down by her own hands. Don't confuse the virtuous one, because you'll wear yourself out. But a lot of moms work today. It's just become more of the norm. Since we don't spend all of our time at home, we must focus on God in our workplace as well. Our future very much involves our careers. Now let's go back and hit the fast forward button again, and I'll take you to the Oglesby household a few years down the road. Webby and I were still serving at the large Christian church in Atlanta, and some of the pieces to the puzzle God had cut from my life were being dropped from heaven for me to fit together. I related to the Israelites being freed from Egyptian bondage. I felt like God had parted the Red Sea, and I had my own ocean floor passage. I realized the pardon granted by God. I continue to strive to show my gratefulness to Him and to be a good servant of His. Remember that childhood mantle prayer I did? I had made a promise, and I intended to keep it. Through a series of events, I became a court reporter and became a giant in the Atlanta market, giving the two men that were competing against each other some real competition. The only thing, I wasn't aware I was even in the battle. It never mattered to me. I was just kind of like that man in Texas who made his millions by minding his own business. The only difference was I didn't amass a million. I just went about my merry way, doing my thing with complete joy. God's path for a poor minister's family was to lead me to the court reporting industry. I quickly grew from one lonely court reporter, me, to a company of 25 reporters. And in my career, I have personally trained over 200 reporters, giving them my time and launching them into a great career. The board of court reporting could always tell one of my trainees, because they all walked in with Philippians 4:13 taped to their machine. I can do everything through Him who gives me strength. It was my promise to God to help anyone I could who needed a break in life, and in a small way, I was giving back to God. It's a sweet story. Yeah, but it didn't come out without a heartache. Out of the 200 plus, I can count on both hands those that didn't do me in somehow. Many of them were Christian friends, and it created a new dark past, but I pressed on. At the height of success in Atlanta, Georgia, Webby and I felt called to Corydon, Indiana. We would uproot our youngest daughter, who was beginning her high school years, and leave our oldest child in Georgia to begin her sophomore year in college. That was never what I had planned for our family. She would become engaged, and we would be stupid enough to allow her to get married, and in hindsight, perhaps because we felt we had abandoned her. As soon as we announced our leaving, there was mutiny within my company, and then, to add insult to injury, the ones who had already moved on and done me in previously came out of the woodwork, and then they all went after my clientele, the same ones I had trained and handed a career to on a silver platter. So any chance of selling a company was, well, quite out of the question. I would pass it down to my daughter, and the very faithful creme de la creme clientele would remain loyal. I'm happy to say it's still a thriving business for her today. But it was fast going belly up during that period of time. Wow, what a nightmare. We would pull out our 5,800 square foot home up for sale, and about the time the market was really turning sour in Atlanta in 1998. I would travel to and from Atlanta to Corydon, a 7-hour drive, for 2.5 years, playing weekend wife and mother, trying to keep the finances together, hold the company together, working twice as much as I already had, and that was already a pretty heavy schedule as it was, and attempting to sell a house that no one was even looking at. Keep up with our out-of-town college daughter, my daughter in Indiana during the week while I was in Georgia, drive up and down the roads from Georgia to Indiana, and put on a wedding during the same time frame. I was exhausted and eventually financially impoverished. By the time we gave the house away for less than half of what we paid for it, having to take out a mortgage to pay the people to take it, I was spent, literally. But I kept going. I was beaten down, but kept my focus on the target. What I gained from our near bankruptcy moment is coming in handy with the plight of the economic status we face today. And I'll share this with you for what it's worth. One thing for sure, the creditors may jump up your tree, but they won't eat you. This too shall pass. I would have a difficult time establishing business in the very tight, cliquish Kentuckiana area. It would be 10 years before we would get another house, and I would have to have a real fright with lumps in my breast. Still, Webby and I kept our focus on God and each other. My husband was incredibly supportive, never wavered in his faith. He would prop me up and point me in the right direction, and I would do the same for him when he needed it. It was teamwork, God and us. We would grow a 30-member church into 800 members in a small town and in a small amount of time. I would help deliver all 5 grandchildren, driving like a maniac in the middle of the night for Tangia's births in Atlanta, because she always had her babies a month early and very unexpectedly. I would build another business, obviously not the giant in Atlanta, but a thriving business nonetheless, and have the opportunity to witness to attorneys, secretaries, paralegals, and at times even the witness who give their depositions. Out of that witness, I would become an every weekend caregiver to the son of one of my clients. Max was a special needs child, having tragically ingested some poison when he was 5. He would pass away just before he turned 18. I had almost 6 years to love him and his family and introduce them to Christ. I would stand over my mother for 32 hours straight, watching her die an excruciating and untimely death due to some faulty medical care in a South Georgia hospital. I would have the opportunity to exhibit God's strength in a stressful situation and witness to not only family but to friends and hospital staff. I have driven over 550,000 miles being a long-distance grandmother and made a few plane flights in that time too. There are tons of occurrences sandwiched in between all of these that I just named to you. I should be slapdog worn out just from the past 16 years in Corydon. I tell you this not for pity or for sympathy or lack thereof. I tell you this because it's life, and it happens to all of us. Life is each of us stepping into our futures. It beats the alternative. I'd be dead if I wasn't living out my future, and so would you. But you know what? My life has been a piece of cake compared to some. These things are nothing in light of what other people have gone through. I don't know about you, but I feel I have been blessed. One of my best friend's 2-year-old son contracted liver cancer and was given 3 days to 3 weeks to live. We prayed him through that, and by the grace of God, some great surgeons, and a tough, aggressive mother, Joseph turned 8 this year. I have gone through nothing compared to some of you. But guess what? Our time is already up for this week. Next week, we'll come back for the conclusion of Getting Past the Past, and we'll continue to discover ways to embrace the future with anticipation of what God has in store for each of us. May God bless and keep you safe.